Guess what day it is? Today is a very, very big day. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you all aboard for the maiden voyage of a podcast that will be known as Bootleg, presented to you by FloFootball. I'm Kolby Paxton. I'll be the master of ceremonies during this journey, wherever it takes us. And I'll be joined by FloFootball contributor and content machine, RJ Young. On today's episode, we'll talk red shirt rules, we'll talk some Theo Weiss, the opening, Lincoln Riley's got a new deal, and probably get into some college football playoff odds. Shout out to Westgate for giving us gambling stuff to talk about in June. But first, a hype track. All right, before we get any further along, back to RJ. Listen, my guy, I love that you're doing this with me. Please introduce yourself to folks who may not be giant OU fans.
Well, I am your OU pusher man is what I am. I'm the mixtape dude. Like we talked, this podcast is called Bootleg, and I'm the dude running around with mixtapes saying this is fire. That's what I do. I love writing it at FloFootball. Kolby had this idea. I said, yeah, man, I'm down. But I make a video on YouTube every day talking about Oklahoma Sooners football, and I write all over the place. I have podcasts. It's about Oklahoma Sooners football. It's 3-4 times a week. It's called Woosah. But that's what I do. I love college football. My background is I covered college football for Sooner Scoop, which was the Rivals affiliate for a while. I'm going to school at Oklahoma State to get a PhD in English, which is an entirely different sort of story. And this is fun. Talking college football is fun. Talking football is fun. I mean, dude, we can go anywhere from the Hamilton Tiger Cats to, some 5-star prospect out of Allen, Texas, plays wide receiver. I don't know. We might get to that.
We might get to him. Actually, the first thing I want to talk about, which is probably ridiculous for the pilot of what is mostly a football podcast, is boxing. Because
hey, podcasts are made for tangents,
bro. I ran across the preview clip for Creed 2, which look, I know like not everybody loves Creed. There are some really stupid people in the world, but Creed is like that's my shit. And Creed 2 preview came out the other day, and I watched it, and I got the feels. I started to cry a little bit. I'm so here for it, and I would love to know your thoughts.
Well, I need Michael B. Jordan to summon the Eric Killmonger character for this, because that's where we're at. I saw Creed 2 without Ryan Coogler. What are we doing here? And then I saw, Drago. This can only end one way. This can only end with my man saying, if he dies, he dies, and we go to black. That's the only way. I need Killmonger for this Creed 2. That's what I need Michael B. Jordan to do. I need him to show up with both hands and say, is this your king? No, I'm your king. Because that was unnecessary. You killed my man in an exhibition. All right? Yeah, he was dancing with James Brown beforehand. Apollo was having a good time. But my man went in there and he killed a man and said, if he dies, he dies. I need vengeance. There are some people like, nah, it's going to be cool. Drago's son, or whoever this kid is to Drago, is going to be cool with Adonis, and it's going to end that way. But, the more Tessa Thompson I get to see, too, because I get to see Tessa Thompson Adrian her way through this movie, I'm down for it. Mm-hmm. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
But I need a fatality at the end of this movie. That's what I need.
Okay. Yeah, so I have a theory. I actually think I already know how the whole movie is going to go, and that's based on, 48 seconds of watching a preview. Can I tell you what I think?
Solid research.
Yeah.
Solid research.
Yeah. Well, that's how I do most of my research, like in 48-second bursts.
You and Skip Bayless.
I shouldn't have laughed that hard at that, but yeah. Here's what I think. I think that we're going to come into the movie, and Donnie is going to, at this point, be, a god of the boxing world. He's going to have, the belts, the money, the fame, all of it. You know, the first movie, it was a grind. He was trying to like make a name for himself, find his place, whatever. I think we're going to open up the second one. He's going to have found anything he could possibly be looking for within the sport.
So we're coming out of Rocky 3. That's what we're doing.
Yeah,
this is Rocky 3.
Dude, exactly. I think
okay,
I think Creed 2 and Rocky 3. I think there are going to be so many parallels. So we come into the movie. He's everything. It's great. It's all good. But the problem with Fame, you know, is that he started to like kind of lose his passion for the sport of boxing. You know, he started to kind of like get comfortable and then start to enjoy the fruits of his labor a little bit. And I think that there's a point where he's on the mat and then he ends up in a hospital. I think that we're gonna come into the movie with him getting his ass knocked out in a fight because he wasn't prepared, because he didn't really give the guy enough respect because he was too busy, being famous.
Okay.
And so then Drago appears. I'm not exactly sure about that sequence of events, but I think that the guy that knocks him out is probably gonna be a championship fight, and then Drago is gonna end up beating that guy, and then Donnie is gonna have to avenge the death of Apollo by beating Drago. And I think and here's the other thing. Donnie's been looking for a purpose, right? He's always trying to like be good enough for his father or for his father's legacy. I think that beating Drago is that thing that gives him that sense of like purpose. Like that's regardless of the title or belt or whatever, like that beating Drago is the thing. That's
I can see that. So like the screenwriter from Rocky 3 and the screenwriter in Rocky 4 had a baby and called it Creed 2. I get that. But when we've already had this fight over his name and what it means to be a Creed, and Creed being such a big part of the first movie, I really, if that's the way you want to go, and I'm not going to put it past Hollywood, they put out some duds as sequels, especially when they're not going to go back to a guy like Coogler who knows how to make this movie. I'm not really going to put it past them to do exactly what you're saying do. I'm just saying it's not going to be a good movie if they do.
Oh,
that's right.
You don't think?
I think if you're bringing Felicia Rashad back, and you're bringing Tessa Thompson back, and you're bringing Balboa back, and you're bringing what's Drago's real name? Dolph Lundgren. You're bringing Dolph Lundgren back, and you're going to rehash Rocky 3 and Rocky 4 with new clothes. I'm going to tell you that it's a bad movie. That's what I'm going to say. Yeah,
okay,
I write stories. That's what I do.
All right. I thought I did too, but
basically come up with that. If we could say Cowboys, aliens, and that's what they want to do, fine. But after Creed, which was an original story, which continued where we left off, which was really good for a lot of different reasons because it went beyond bringing Apollo back from the dead, which is what a lot of people thought it was going to do, right? We thought that they were just going to summon Apollo, and they kind of did. They kind of did with this love child that is Donnie. Mm-hmm. But coming off of Creed, coming off of Black Panther, to say nothing of Friday Night Lights and Wallace, if what you're doing is just going to give me the first half of Rocky 3 and Rocky 4 without the epic training montage, you failed at your job. That's what I think.
Man.
That rough? That hit you hard?
Yeah, that hurt, man. I was really into it. I thought I had it, and I was excited about it. And now, you have taken all my excitement away.
I'm sorry, not sorry.
Okay.
Hey, yo, man, I tell stories. That's what I do. So hey, we would have look. You'd come to the script writing meeting, right? That's what you would do.
Yeah.
You'd come to the meeting. You'd lay out what you want to do. And we take these parts of it and we throw those away and we say, okay, we can do better. Just like this podcast.
All right. Fine. But I need you to tell me what your magical plot twist would be that would make my mediocre sequel a good sequel.
You'd have to make the emotional struggles. You'd have to raise those stakes. You're talking about kids. You're talking about not just legacy, but look, you're bringing back a guy who killed a guy. If you're not going to match that with killing another guy, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, a life for a life, then just the point entirely, because that's why Rocky took the fight. He was done fighting. Then you killed his best friend.
Yeah.
So unless somebody's going to die here, like Lundgren comes up to Rocky Balboa and like knifes him in the throat with a shiv or something, I don't see how this works. Like, this would have not been the way that I go with the Creed 2. Matter of fact, that was the thing. I'm excited about it because I'm excited about Rocky movies in general. I mean, I showed up for Rocky 6, which was, Balboa as death warmed over. I showed up for Rocky 5, which had a guy from Cushing, Oklahoma in the lead. But I just, look, if we're just going to keep making Rocky movies for the sake of making Rocky movies, maybe we need to stop. So I'm not saying that I could come up with a better plot or a better plot twist. I'm saying that if that's the best that I could do, maybe I need to lay off of Creed. Maybe I need to take that somewhere else. Man. So, yeah, you got to go see it.
I don't want to ruin Creed. I don't want to ruin Creed for you with my hypothetical situation of what it could potentially be, because I could be wrong.
You're not going to ruin Creed for me.
Yeah,
there's only one.
Don't leave Creed. Don't leave Creed, man. Stick with it. Matter of fact, go with me. We'll go together. We'll see who's right. I'll cheer.
I'm down for that.
I'll cheer for somebody to die so that you feel better about yourself as you're walking to your car after the thing is over with.
Yes, it'd be Mortal Kombat fatality. That's all I wanted.
Hey, okay, that's probably good enough boxing for the first 12 minutes of this thing. But there's one more preview I want to talk about. This actually is about football. Last Chance U is like my drug. I'm not ashamed to say that at all. Got really into season 1. Season 2 kind of disappointed me. I didn't think it was as good as season 1. But season 3 at Indy, I'm pretty excited about it. I've got a little personal thing going on with Indy CC. I was there for 4 seconds one time in my life, so it piqued my interest initially. But then the fact that
perhaps we need to say Independence Community College.
Yeah, you're right. Not everybody would know that that's Indy CC.
Right.
Independence, not Indianapolis.
Also, tell us where this place is, because I've been there and you've been there.
Right. So Independence, Kansas, wildly different than Indianapolis, Indiana. In the middle of nowhere, Kansas. I mean, I'm talking nowhere. And I can't even really describe to you how to get there, aside from take I-35 north until you see nothing left of interest, and then turn off on a farm to market road, and then drive for a little ways, and eventually I'm pretty sure you'll see a sign that's Independence or Coffeyville. So if you want to go to Indy, hang a left. And
these are your two choices.
Yeah.
That's all there's left at the ends of this earth.
Yeah. So
tumbleweeds actually roll by.
Bro, so one of my best friends actually played quarterback at Independence. I can't even remember what years at this point. But he was NJCAA preseason All-American as a quarterback in Indy. And the summer before that, I went with him. We were both going to play at Independence. And I couldn't do it, dude. The highlights for me were driving south to Bartlesville, Oklahoma. That jumped out as a fun thing to do. We went to Walmart at midnight when NCAA football came out that year. That was a major activity of the summer. And there was a public pool that we would go hang out at. So
I remember a movie theater. I remember a small movie theater.
I don't.
Oh, wow.
What I remember is that we didn't have an actual practice field, really. We just had this patch of grass up on a hill. It was dorm parking lot hill, and it was just grass. And in Kansas in July, the grass was brown, and it was about 450 degrees outside. And I have never hated football ever, and that summer I hated it a lot. So I did the reasonable thing and quit, and went somewhere else. But yeah, that's my independent story.
Kolby said, "I would rather get a real job than stay here on scholarship to play football."
It's not a proud time in my life, but yeah, man, I left, moved home, slept on my parents' couch for 2 months. Shout out to them for letting me do that. And yeah, dude, it was it's one of the worst places I've ever been. But anyway, the documentary looks phenomenal, super awesome. Can't wait to see it. Florida State quarterback Malik Henry, I should say ex-Florida State quarterback Malik Henry is in it because apparently there's some sort of contractual obligation that Netflix has to do it with a guy that used to play quarterback at FSU. I don't know why, but in every season there's an ex-FSU
that would
quarterback
make sense
involved.
though.
Yeah,
that would definitely makes sense. But in defense of Last Chance U, there have only been 3 seasons of it, and we can throw a rock and hit an ex-FSU quarterback.
That's a good point.
So, like, I hear you on that, but who's the last quarterback who made it all 4 years that you can remember? I'll wait.
Oh, God. Chris Winkie.
Came after Jameis. Who started in Jameis's place? I mean, you can look it up. It's cool.
Yeah, but I got too much pride for that. First name was initials, right?
No, it's not EJ.
Damn. All right.
It was not EJ. It's not EJ.
Florida State.
Who was that?
This is really good dead air right now as I try to Google Florida State quarterbacks.
Hey, that's what you do. You Google what you don't know. That's what we have.
Yeah, you do, unless you've got you on the other end who could just tell me because I know you know and you're being stingy with your knowledge.
I like watching you struggle.
Okay.
I like watching you struggle.
All right.
For the folks listening on audio, I get to watch Kolby struggle with this and watch his pride just kind of circle the drain.
My pride is melting away right now. This is like a really dark moment for me. I found this website that has them ranked. Every Florida State quarterback ranked. Sean McGuire's on there at number 21. And, Everett Golson, Notre Dame.
Nope, not all 4 years.
No. I'm just looking for the guy that came in after Jameis.
Oh, no, the guy who came in to sub for Jameis when Jimbo made him sit.
Oh, yeah, little white dude. I forget his name, though.
White.
Dude, I'm blanking on the name because he's not relevant.
That's why I want to find it.
It's a hell of a trivia question, though, which I would expect myself to get right, but
hey, man, one college football aficionado to another.
Quarterback who subbed in place of, I'm just going to Google literally the question.
It's really good because it was one of my favorite sideline moments, which was Jimbo actually walking up and saying, "You better sit your ass down."
Oh, man, that was so good. God, that was great.
And you could just see it in his country accent, telling James, he's like, "Coach, but I could go in."
Hey, did you know Jimbo's from West Virginia?
I did.
I didn't until I was watching some deal.
That's one of the reasons I liked him so much.
That's why.
And one of the reasons that he didn't have a problem making him the head coach in waiting. They had a lot in common from that. I mean, you remember, Bobby Bowden was up there at West Virginia.
Yeah,
man.
That's true. So was Nick Saban, right? Isn't he a West Virginia guy? Not at West Virginia University, but isn't he from there?
Yeah, he is.
That's what I thought.
Is. But that was I did know that. I giggled about it for a very long time, and then he went down there and started winning championships, and then it wasn't funny anymore.
Yeah, Marty Smith did this thing where he was like riding horses with Jimbo, and it was surprisingly compelling TV. Dude, I cannot find this guy. I give up. Just tell me who it was.
Marty has a really weird job.
He has a.
You ever notice that?
No, his job is super weird.
What does Marty actually do?
I don't know, but I'm sure that he gets paid handsomely to ride horses and hike the Grand Canyon. Like I would. If Flo told me, "Hey, we want you to go hike the Grand Canyon and ride horses with Jimbo for the next month and a half," I would not say no.
But also bear in mind that Marty gets to basically go everywhere and do everything, right? It's not just football. It seems to be football and NASCAR and NCAA tournament and whatever else. So one of the things that I love about podcasts and having this sort of video podcast that I'm going to abuse and I don't really care is I'm going to text Kolby the answers to these questions and watch him freak out.
Nice. This is perfect.
That's what I'm going to do.
I already said Sean McGuire.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I did. I said he was ranked number 21. He was number 21 on the list of FSU quarterbacks.
I swear I heard you say Everett Golson.
I did, but before that I said Sean McGuire. See,
well,
you let me walk the plank for no reason, man, and that's not what good friends do. I'm just gonna put that out there.
I was sorry, but hey, you've gotten back a bit of your college football pride, though, right?
Yeah, no, definitely.
But that on another tangent, though, since we're talking about Malik and we're talking about Last Chance U and Indy, think about that for a second. Sean McGuire, right? And then how far can you go back before you can get to another Florida State quarterback who was there for 4 years?
Man, I mean, honest to God, I really can't think of one. Christian Ponder came out early. EJ came out early.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like,
what
how
happened?
far?
What happened to Chris Ricks? Did he play all 4? Something happened with him, right?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think he did though, because as I remember, he was also a guy that was kind of into baseball. That right?
I can't remember, man. Actually
No,
that ties into
Ricks made it 2001 to 2004.
Okay.
That's 4 years.
So I actually it's random, but also kind of related to Indy. One of our assistant coaches in Indy that summer when I was there, I cannot remember the guy's name, and even if I could, it'd probably be kind of messed up for me to like drop it here. But he told us he had been a wide receivers coach at Florida State. And apparently, all you have to do is say that you have been a coach, and people would just like nod and go with it because he got a job at Indy, like with that like alleged credential. I don't know what he really was at Florida State. I don't know if he was like, I don't know if he was like an analyst or if he was like an equipment room guy or if he was just like a guy who like cheered for FSU on Saturdays or what.
But he's one of the guys who would have had a headset in 2017 at Alabama, but no longer has a headset. That's what he was.
Yeah, probably so.
That's what he was.
Probably so.
For background, he came out with the headset rule in the SEC, where there's just a number of headsets that you can hand out, and all the SEC coaches, Nick Saban being the main guy, called BS because who has time to keep track of all of this? We let the interns do this and that, and they wear headsets so everybody can hear. But that's what that dude was. He was a guy who had a headset, but not a title. He's not on the roster.
Spot on.
And he shows up and he's like, nah, I had a headset at such and such a place, and where I would, I would chart the wide receiver plays. Oh, you're wide receivers coach. Yeah, that's what I was. That's how you get the job, there.
That's how I got that job.
In like Flynn.
I was told by some guys who stayed after I made my quick departure that he didn't last long. Apparently, the internet was a thing, and people like looked it up, and so yeah, he didn't stay long. But he had this like elaborate story about how he was best friends with Chris Ricks' dad, and he would talk about Chris Ricks all the time, and it was just anyway, I don't guess in retrospect, not a great story because there's not much of a punchline, but this guy who lied about where he used to coach also lied about being best friends with Chris Ricks' dad. So there you go.
Again, hey man, I had his number. Because I need to ask him whether or not Chris likes his socks wet or not wet, even though I probably know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
So I was friends with him because friends have each other's phone numbers. That's how that works. I'm telling you, college football is a strange and glorious place. Like the guy that takes Nick Saban's gum gets paid a check.
Yeah.
Like
what?
Probably
knocks down about $80K just to pick up some gum, knowing Alabama's athletic budget.
Well, segue on top of another segue, on top of another tangent. The executive director of football recruiting in Oklahoma got a pay bump from $70,000 to $115,000. Now, that's a teacher salary in Oklahoma. That's a raise and deserves it because of what 2018 was, 2019 was at Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. But the money is my point. The money that's being floated around in college football never ceases to just be like, you get paid what to do, huh?
Bro, listen, I did not intend to go down this road, but we're here, and I'm hanging a right hard off on this little dirt road. Speaking of the money in college football, please tell us how you feel about Mike Stoops getting $30,000 additional and an extension after really, coaching up that defense as well as he did.
For what? For what? For what, man? Come on. Look. I get it. The math checks out on when you really dig into it. The math checks out. So you put together a top 10 recruiting class where you close out hard, right? At Oklahoma, you had 4 Army All-Americans commit and or sign over the last 6 weeks before signing day. 1 on signing day, and the defensive tackle Michael Thompson out of Missouri. All of these kids can play. All these kids I'm excited about. Talked to a bunch of them, right? Buki being one of them, the one that everybody knows, Brendan Radley Hiles. But why are you giving $30,000 and then an extension through 2020? Well, turns out Oklahoma has a top 3 recruiting class according to the 24/7 composite today, right? Which is what matters. And is probably going to finish with a top 5 or better for the first time in nearly a decade. Right? Last time we were this good at Oklahoma was 08. That 08 class was really good. And that 07 class was really good. So forth, so on, competing for championships. That's when the classes are great. But you can't fire that guy, right? As he's not only going to help you put together a top 5 recruiting class, but a lot of those kids that are committed play on the defensive side of the ball. And whatever he's saying to them, to their parents, to their coaches is working. And whatever they are told that they're going to do in the scheme is working. So you give that guy a pay bump for that. You give him an extension so that he keeps to say to the recruits, I'm going to be here. See, I just got an extension. Same thing with Riley. And I think these longer coaching contracts are going to become the norm. So that you can walk in, if you're Jimbo Fisher, and say, I got a contract for 10 years. That's 2 recruiting cycles and a half. What do you think? You know? And I get that's a smart move on that basis alone. But the numbers, not just last year, but over the last 6 years that Mike Stoops has been the defensive coordinator, where Brent Venables left when Mike Stoops came back, and Brent Venables won a championship, has one of the best defenses college football last 5 years. The numbers are 101 in the S&P Plus, which is advanced statistics by Football Outsiders, 87 in total defense. You give up a ton of points to everybody. You make third-string quarterbacks look like Heisman candidates. Like, I was more worried about Zach Smith at Baylor and Kyle Kemp at Iowa State competing with Baker Mayfield for the Heisman Trophy than I was Bryce Love out of Stanford for what we were getting done to us on a weekly basis. But we've also had some really historically bad performances, Kolby. Tavon Austin, wide receiver. You move him to running back. He torches us 300 yards, 17 yards per carry.
The Cowboys got that film. That's what the Cowboys are going to do. The Cowboys watched that and said, hey, we should move him to running back.
Oh, my God. You know, and then later, like 2016, Pat Mahomes not only passes for 734 yards, puts up 819 yards of total offense by his damn self. Come on, man. At what point is it going, dude? But here's the thing, though. What's baffling is this is a guy who could quite literally put a defense out on the field to shut down Ohio State in September. And then run 3-man lines against a power running team like Georgia. And then look at everybody with a straight face and say, my kids didn't execute. What?
I know.
So, I can't with that, man.
What I don't get about Mike is at one point he was the preeminent defensive coordinator in all of college football. I mean, that 2000 Oklahoma defense, that 2002 Oklahoma defense, 2003 Oklahoma defense. And when he left, people were not in love with Brent Venables. I mean, I remember Brent taking heat for not being Mike, and now it's flipped. Now it's Mike is not Brent, and we miss Brent, and now we're tired of Mike. And I don't know at what point Mike forgot how to, or just didn't evolve with the game. I guess that's probably the answer to the question. I guess he just didn't evolve with the way that college football has gone.
Well, let's think about this for just a second in terms of the end result, right? Brent Venables got torched by USC, still got in front of USC. Brent Venables got torched by Florida, still got in front of Florida for a national championship, right? Got torched by Texas. Texas competed for a national championship, right? So I get that. And his defense, from what the kids had said when I was covering the team, was it's complicated and I grade out fine, right? When I grade out at like 98, okay? Right. I'm doing what I'm asked to do. So that's scheme. Right. That's flat out scheme. But Brent Venables wasn't run off by OU fans. That's a myth, right? I actually have a video going up on YouTube about on the day that we're recording this podcast, it's Friday. I have a video going up about this. Brent Venables left because he wanted to leave, because Dabo Swinney made a run at him. And Brent was at the airport having a conversation with himself about, do I want to do this to my family? Because he's always been a guy who says, I don't want to move around. I don't want to be that guy. And if I go to Clemson, I also have an opportunity to perhaps be a head coach, which is not something that he's ruled out at any time, at any point. So he said repeatedly, it's not because Mike came back. I thought that if he came back, maybe we could rekindle some of the same co-defensive coordinator energy that we had in 03.
Mm-hmm.
And we could go from there. But I also believe that when Mike came back, Bob said Mike's going to be the play caller, which makes you the defensive coordinator, right? You're the de facto defensive coordinator if you're calling the plays. Like Bill Beanbo is co-offensive coordinator at OU. Lincoln Riley calls the plays. We know who runs the offense.
Right.
And I got to think that if I'm Brent Venables, that figures into my thinking. When Bob tells me you're no longer the guy, you're going to share those duties, that you're going to go to Clemson where Dabo says, not only are you going to be the guy, I'm going to make you the highest paid assistant in college football.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? After these years where everybody has said your defense is kind of so-so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, go to Clemson. Go to South Carolina. Set the world on fire.
Man, he did.
Right? So I don't blame OU fans. I blame Bob if you're going to blame anybody. Right? Because that's Bob making that decision and Bob having to live with it. So I get where you're going with it, but it just the math doesn't add up when you hear Brent Venables talk about it, and he's talked about it a few times, 2014, 2015, most notably when OU plays Clemson, right?
Yep.
And he's destroyed OU in both cases.
Yeah.
Which is insult to injury.
All right, I do want to talk about the rest of the country, but while we're on the subject of OU, dude, honestly, like I don't really have a whole lot to say about this. I just think it's funny, and I haven't got a chance to talk to you about it yet. How about Lincoln Riley's extension at OU, or I guess I should just say his raise at OU, effective in 2018, that will make him the highest paid guy in his own locker room?
So I thought that this was tongue-in-cheek because the way that they crafted this is beautiful, because you get to say, hey, he's just making $100,000 leap over the next 5 years to get him to an average of $5 million a year over the next 5 years. But for those of us that know publicly what Kyler Murray signed his contract for to play Major League Baseball, which is in the realm of $4.7 million, for you to look at the math and see that Lincoln Riley's making 4.8, right, is just funny. And they don't admit to this publicly, but you got to know that Joe C., the athletic director, didn't want anybody to use the headline, quarterback makes more than the head coach. It's just bad optics.
Too late, Joe C. I tweeted that shit out like right after it happened.
Right? I think we all did. And they got tired of seeing it, so they squashed it. Okay. Right? They squashed it as soon as they could by saying 4.8.
I do actually buy it a little bit. Like, look, couple of things. I don't know Kyler well. I've had a couple of conversations with the guy. He seems like a really solid dude. And I'm a huge Lincoln Riley fan. I think he's a phenomenal leader of men. And I think that he's going to do really great things at Oklahoma. Having said that, I mean, in a college locker room, to have a quarterback out-earning his coach, I don't know, man. I think it was like, part of me was like, oh, they're being funny about it. Part of me was like, no, they really don't want that scenario where Kyler Murray's the highest paid guy in that locker room, because they don't think that's conducive to a good environment inside of that locker room. Even if we're just talking about $100,000, it's still, an order of power inside of within those closed doors. Either way, whether they were joking or whether they were serious, I agree with the timing and the move either way. I won't belabor the point, but I was watching some show on ESPN the other day while I was on a treadmill. I won't name the name of the show, but it's one of those shows where they put a bunch of like 60-year-old panelists on there, and they all, wax poetic about how
there's a buzzer and people scream at each other, and they get like 2 seconds to make a point.
Potentially, it could be one of those shows where they just like arbitrarily score it as though people are making like phenomenal points when in reality they're just saying words. It could also be a show where you got a bunch of old dudes trying to relate to young guys in a way that is neither accurate nor endearing. Could be one of those shows. And on that show, they were like killing OU for the timing of the extension. They called it petty. And I'm just like, man, that is clearly spoken by a bunch of dudes that just do not understand the dynamic. Again, whether it was a joke or whether it was serious. Because it was one of the two.
Well, I mean, there's two things on that. There's folks that cover college sports for a living, and there's folks that cover professional sports for a living. And in professional sports, it's not unheard of for the star player to make an obscene amount of money, way more than the head coach. But nobody's talking about what the authority is there, who's in charge. Belichick makes less than Brady. who's in charge of the Patriots. Nobody questions that.
Right.
Nobody questions who's in charge of the Philadelphia Eagles, even though Carson Wentz is changing the game with RPOs and whatnot. Nobody questions these things. And for whatever reason, in college sports, and I think it's the Nick Saban effect of, I am supreme leader. This is North Korea, and you are all my subjects. So I make not just money, I make it significantly more money than you do, right? Nick Saban makes like $11 million a year, which is nearly. I mean, that like the closest is Harbaugh at like 7, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, there's this gap where we keep score by how much our head coaches make,
right? And
if you're worried about the optics in college sports, you need to have your head coach still be the face of your program, despite what anybody says, right? No, whether Tom Herman wants to be or not, Texas is him.
Yeah.
He is Texas.
Yeah.
So I see it on that front. Now, when you talk about this arbitrary show of individuals, not one of them covers college sports for a living. They cover professional teams where this makes sense to them that it's petty. It makes sense to them because they're familiar with LeBron James and Dan Gilbert's way of thinking.
Right.
That's not what you have in the college ranks.
Right.
Athletic directors think that way. They think in terms of head coaches and TV.
Yeah.
That's what they do. So it makes sense to me.
Okay. That's enough Oklahoma, RJ. 30-some odd minutes.
I guarantee nothing.
I want to talk. I mean, it's been almost a week, but I haven't got a chance to talk to you about it yet. The new redshirt rule in college football. I think it's crazy, and the reason I think it's crazy is because I think it's crazy that Mark Emmert and the NCAA finally got something right. Effective immediately, a guy can play in up to 4 games and not burn his red shirt, which is good for players and fans and coaches and programs and literally everybody associated with the game, which is plenty of reason to expect Emmert and the NCAA to not get it right. And yet, lo and behold, incredibly, miraculously, they got it right. So anyway, I think it's going to be fascinating to watch how coaches around the country with different personalities and different systems
abuse
and
this rule.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sky's the limit in the way that the rule can be utilized, and I would love to hear your thoughts.
I'm with you on the grand scheme of things. It's great. Like I love it, and I've said that before. With the example being Shea Patterson, right, who transferred to Michigan, who would have had another year if he didn't have to come in for a Chad Kelly who blew out his knee. So I mean, also Last Chance U alumni before there was Last Chance U. There's the Last Chance U segue.
Yeah.
But I think your story about Jalen Hurts works in this case. But I think what we're also going to see is right. I think the thing that we're really going to see is not just a ton of freshmen, but a ton of everybody playing right away. And you're really not going to know who your kids are, who the guys you're going to hang your hat on until November at this rate.
Right.
That's the other thing that I think is real curious about this, because at every college football institution, not just Alabama, Oklahoma, whatever, you don't know who your guy is until you're in a big moment, and then that big moment solidifies that guy as your starting tailback, as your starting wide receiver, or what have you.
Yep.
But in the SEC, I'm really interested to see this because I think it's going to turn these FCS beatings into glorified spring games where all you see is a bunch of freshmen. And I'm interested in how they're going to, Nick Saban's going to win a game 31-28 over Samford for whatever reason. And then he's going to try to sell Samford as, well, they're an FCS power who went 4-8. Like, that's what I think is going to happen. That's what I think is going to happen. It's like him holding up Fresno State last year after they got mollywopped by Auburn.
Yeah.
To be like, yeah, we should be in the college football playoff. So that's, I think, in one way, you're creating more problems for yourself because you get to tell freshmen what you wanted to tell them for years, which is you will play right away. Right? You'll play right away. You come on campus, you will play. But do you really want to play against Tennessee Chattanooga? Is that what you came to Alabama to do?
Man.
Tennessee Chattanooga and only Tennessee Chattanooga. Mercer. Hey, why are we starting Jalen Hurts or even Tua at this point? Let's play the 4th-string guy who's never going to see the field.
Yeah.
And fans, what do you think? This is what you came for? This is what you bought season tickets for? So I'm really interested to see how this gets spinned, because I don't see, if I'm a head coach, why I wouldn't do that. Why would I play blue chip college football talent when I don't have to?
You mentioned Jalen and Tua not playing a four-string guy. Right after this happened, well, it wasn't right. Within a couple of days of this happening, I was sitting at home on like a Saturday, and I was just thinking about it, and I was thinking about all the different scenarios that could play out, and I was trying to think like big picture, like season-altering things that could happen because of this new rule. And one of them, I mean, honestly, I wrote about 1,400 words and then stopped after I talked myself out of my own idea as I was writing it. But I still wrote about Jalen, and that's one of the three big storylines I had in mind when I went into it. With Jalen, I actually think, and I made this the headline on the site, and I know it looked like clickbait, but I swear to God, I meant it. I think Jalen's better off not playing in 2018. I think that he wins by losing the starting job. And the reason I think that is because and most people expect Tua to win the job. I'm not a big Tua guy either, for the record. Like I'm neither pro or con Tua. I'm whatever. If Jalen wins that job, Alabama fans, being as sane and collected as they are, as a collective fan base, are going to be on Jalen every move he makes. I mean, every incomplete pass, every interception, every miscommunication, name it. Dude takes a sack, they're going to be like, well, Tua probably would have slipped that tackle. I mean, the whole season, if Tua's not in the game, he's going to be the most popular player on a team. Jalen doesn't need that. Jalen's won 28 games and taken his team to back-to-back national championships in 2 years as a starter at Alabama with 2 years of eligibility left. And now with this new redshirt rule, I think it would be extremely beneficial to him to lose the job to Tua. Playing up to 4 games, fine. I think it would be cool of Saban to use Jalen as insurance for Tua. If Tua suffers a big injury, yeah, throw Jalen in the game. Let's rock. But if we're talking about like mop-up duty against, as you mentioned, an FCS opponent, or I haven't even looked at their schedule, but Ole Miss, for example, don't mess with Jalen for that. Leave him out. Jalen plays 4 games or fewer, and then his dad is going to be right on the money when he said that Jalen will be the biggest free agent in the history of college football. If Jalen plays 4 games or less in 2018, he will be the biggest free agent in college football, and there's going to be a line of programs coming after him, one of which plays in Boca Raton and is coached by Nick's former offensive coordinator, Lane Kiffin, and I am really, really here for that. Thoughts?
I hear your point, but 2 things on that front. One is Jacob Coker. The other one is Blake Barnett. So if that's what you want to gamble on, go right ahead. Like, those guys weren't blue chip quarterbacks, and like Nick Saban's not recruiting blue chip quarterbacks to come in to replace you at any point, at any time. Also, yeah, Jalen won a lot of games. But if you're going to tell me that Jalen won a lot of games without the running backs that he has, without Calvin Ridley bailing him out of some pretty bad throws, and without Jeremy Pruitt as his defensive coordinator and Kirby Smart even before that, then I got nothing for you, because Alabama, the way that Nick Saban has built it, isn't the quarterback. We put a lot of emphasis on the quarterback at Alabama, and for what? That guy's not invited to the Heisman ceremony. He's not. We give it to the running back. We talk about these monsters, these freaks on the defense. My goodness, Yeah. Daron Payne. How are you going to – you keep replacing that guy. You keep replacing a Rolando McClain. You keep replacing a Minka Fitzpatrick year after year. D. Milner. Fine. Let him go, right? Let him end up doing Shea Patterson.
RJ.
Let him go to Syracuse. Let him go to wherever it is he thinks he's going to be good.
Syracuse.
But – well, tell me. Well, hey.
I don't know.
Tell me.
That's so random.
No, seriously. Tell me where he's going to go.
Let him go to San Jose
and
State.
Be good. Like, if he goes to FAU, right? Let's say they win 12 games.
Yeah.
Okay. Win 12 games in what conference? On what TV network?
Who cares? If they win,
I do if I'm Jalen Hurts, because I want to play in the league.
I don't
want people yelling about how I'm not a first-round pick. Because I didn't play nobody.
Hey, tell me this. How many Alabama quarterbacks, regardless of how well they played Alabama, have been high draft picks and or made it in the league?
Hey, man, that's a question that you needed to ask before you decide to sign your letter of intent at Alabama.
Look, my point is, I want to make this clear. My point is not that Jalen is going to leave Alabama, go to Florida Atlantic, go to Houston, whatever, and set the world on fire. I think Jalen's a nice player. I don't think he's a great player. My point is, for Jalen, I think the best case scenario is not playing this year in more than 4 games, and then transferring.
And my point is the best case scenario is for him to win the job, and this time don't get set in the second half of the biggest game of the season.
He's never gonna hold off Tua, bro. Like it's never gonna happen. If he wins the job, he's gonna have this kid breathing down his neck at all times.
Welcome to being a college football quarterback or college football anything at any big time university.
Yeah, and I know the backup quarterback is always the most popular player on a team, and I understand that, man. But I think it's different with Tua. Tua's got that Baker Mayfield rock star status thing going on with Alabama fans because he played for 5 minutes and did good things. Like I just think Tua's a different animal.
He might well be. But if you're Jalen Hurts, you've done 2 years here. You've won a title.
Mm-hmm.
You basically won him a title last year. Why are you the king? You are king. And if people want to talk around the program about what should be done, I've been talking about what should be done in Oklahoma for years. Guess who makes the decision? The head coach. And if Nick Saban says it's your job, or that you can win this job, you got no choice but to take him at his word, or like you were saying, maybe you make yourself a college football free agent and you go down there to play for Kendall Briles, which presents its own sorts of problems.
And Charlie Weiss Jr., you're a 25-year-old offensive coordinator.
But that's the other thing, right? If you're going to go, you're going like you're going to be the guy wherever you go, right? Ask John Franklin III about that. He went JUCO because he wasn't the guy at Florida State, and then went to Auburn, wasn't the guy at Auburn.
No.
Right?
Hey, and also, if we're going to be serious discussion about the FAU quarterback situation, that room is loaded. I mean, of all the group of 5 programs, FAU probably makes the least sense in terms of the level of competition in the quarterback room.
Right. I mean, I don't want Riff Raff as my quarterback, but he can play. I'm not going to say he can't. He can play.
Yeah.
His problems aren't on the field. We know that, but that's FAU also. That's the stigma that they're developing.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't see him leaving Alabama as the big boom for him that you think it is and that his dad thinks it is.
Okay.
And if he's going to go to Texas, now we have something to talk about.
Well, how come? Right? How come it wouldn't be if he goes to Texas? I'm sorry. I'm gonna let you finish your point. Why is Texas something to talk about, but like Houston would not be?
Because Texas has the same level of prestige and the same platform as in Alabama. Nobody's going to see you play quarterback at Texas and say that you aren't that good. Nobody's going to say that you didn't play against competition
unless you're
good.
Not that good, and unless the competition is that good. That's why I like Houston for him, because I don't believe in him that much.
Well, and see, that's I'm Jalen Hurts' advocate here, saying stay at Alabama.
Okay. All right.
You're Jalen Hurts' advocate saying, I don't really believe in him, so go to Houston.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm just looking out for his mental well-being. All right. Okay. Jalen aside, what I think is cool about this rule, and I don't want to stay on it forever, but what I think is cool about it is the flexibility that coaches now have to utilize freshmen in a unique way. And I don't know how many coaches are actually going to try this, and it's a real thin line that you're walking, because you're talking about what I'm talking about is using guys late. Basically, a good portion of my thought process about this is like, man, you can use freshmen now as like a bullpen. Like, you can be like the 2014-15 Royals and roll out 5 closers over the last 5 innings of the game. Like, so. With that in mind, I thought about Georgia, and I'll explain the Georgia theory, and then I'll explain. I mean, you'll know why I talked myself out of it before I finish. But first of all, I thought about the quarterback spot, and obviously Justin Fields needs no introduction. The kid is phenomenally talented, looked really good in the Georgia spring game, but Jacob Fromm is there, and Fromm is a player. And I thought about it this way: if you take Justin Fields off of Georgia Tech, you take Justin Fields off of Georgia, and put him on Florida, we'll say, and he's never there. He never signed. You're not going to pick up Phil Steele's preseason preview magazine and read, yeah, Georgia is a little iffy at the quarterback spot. You're not going to read that. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, quarterback is a plus for this team because Jake Fromm is a baller who led his team to the national championship game. That doesn't change just because Justin Fields is there. Now they have two great players, but they already have Fromm. So I'm taking Fields out of the equation. Fromm plays all year. And then I'm thinking about Zamir White. And Zamir White, number one running back in the country, blows a knee late November, 7-month recovery, we'll say. That backfield, though, look, Zamir White, it may be a transcendent talent, but that backfield is still loaded, even without Chubb, even without Michelle, because they've got DeAndre Swift, they've got James Cook, Dalvin's little brother, who looks like lightning in a bottle, and they've got Elijah Holyfield as well. Shout out to Evander. So the backfield is in good shape. So you could conceivably put Zamir on ice and hold him out. And if you do that, you get to the end of the year, whether it be against Georgia Tech or whether you wait till the SEC championship game, now two things happen. First of all, you could put Justin Fields in a game against Bama in Atlanta and, whoops, told you I was going to mute that and I didn't. You put Justin Fields in the game in Atlanta against Alabama with a package designed for him, and Alabama's going to have no way to have prepared for that. They're just going to be like, oh, yeah, damn, this kid's really good. We got to figure this out on the fly. Kind of a Tua type of thing with what happened with Georgia. And then the other deal with Zamir is that you have the opportunity, if you hold him out until Georgia Tech, to have arguably the best running back in the country with fresh legs. And so that was my premise. But then I thought, first of all, talk to my guy Michael, UGA guy. He does not feel comfortable at all that Georgia can get through South Carolina, Auburn, LSU, etc., without using Justin Fields, without using Zamir White. Also, whether they can or not, this rule probably doesn't apply to a guy like Justin Fields or Zamir White, because if they're as advertised, they're not going to be there in what would be their fifth year anyway. So that's how I wrote 1,400 words and then talked myself out of it and scrapped the entire article. And it made me really sad, so I felt like I should tell the whole story now, just so I had something to show for my work. But all that said, I don't even want you to comment because I don't need your negativity right now. The other scenario that I do believe in, is at Clemson. Let's say that Trevor Lawrence wins that job. And I like Kelly Bryant, but let's say Trevor Lawrence wins that job. They're loaded at wide receiver. They've got a pro-style pocket passer at quarterback now. They roll. They go through the whole season. Let's say they go undefeated. All of this is clearly hypothetical. I have no idea if they're going to go undefeated. They get to the end of the year. There's a kid named Darian Kendrick, who was a 4th-ranked wide receiver in the country by the end of last year. He was considered an athlete for a long time, then finally got moved to wide receiver in the recruiting databases. He played quarterback at South Point and was a phenomenal player. We had him on FloFootball against Buford, Georgia, and Buford is strong, and Darian lit them up. I don't know that he'll play at wide receiver right away at Clemson. I mean, clearly he's like a Percy Harvin type of player and could be used that way. But if Dabo wants to, he could bring him along slow, and he could wait. And then the last 4 games, he could drop Darian Kendrick on everybody's head as this like secret weapon who can line up in the backfield at quarterback, has to be respected as a thrower because he can throw. I mean, teams were recruiting him as a passer, just not Clemson. And then obviously can also be used in gadget plays on the outside. That example is why I think this is a big deal, because I think that a player like Darian Kendrick at any program in the country, a coach could now choose not to rush him onto the field, knowing he'll get a 5th year and knowing that in addition to that 5th year, he has the competitive advantage of throwing that kid on the field when it matters the most. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, it's a nice thought, and I like how reasoned it is. I don't like how non-football it is, because two things that I know that you know, as folks who play the game, football coaches don't believe in people who haven't played before. They don't. And it doesn't matter how you want to draw it up as, bringing them along slowly or all at once. Football coaches don't believe in folks that don't play. Mm-hmm. They just don't, especially freshmen. They don't care once you get there, right? They'll play you if you're good, and they'll play you early, and they'll play you often, because in a football coach's head, you could blow your knee at any point. And if you're going to blow your knee, I want you to blow it trying to win this game, because if we don't win this game, we're not undefeated anymore, and we're not playing for a national championship. So, I mean, like, I hear you in the baseball sense of it, because this is something that we see in baseball a lot, particularly also in women's softball, where you'll have a pitcher who's just amazing, but you won't throw them unless you know there are no cameras rolling. And even then, you don't throw a lot, so nobody has any tape. So, I mean, in theory, it works. But in football, we saw it work with Tua, right? It could work with a Justin Fields, but we saw it tried at Oklahoma. I'm bringing it back up because Kyler Murray was in there for gadget plays against Georgia, and Georgia shut him down. Didn't matter. And we can both agree that Kyler Murray is a transcendent talent on the level of a Justin Fields, on the level of a Zamir White. You can also see he started over there at Texas A&M. It didn't go well, right? So we have examples in both directions. We have good examples, right? We have bad examples. If I'm a football coach, I'm going to continue to do things the way that I want to do them from the past, which is play my best players first. And then if we get a lead, let's go see what this kid can do. And if he can do something, we have that to hold on to later, right? Sure. So I don't know about this. I mean, bringing them along in that way, I could definitely see. But, I mean, betting on freshmen late in the game when you absolutely don't have to, or when you're just banking on this is my curveball, I don't think that's fair to them. I don't think that's fair to the team. So it could work. It could definitely work. But I've seen ways in which it won't work, and that comes down to a philosophy of coaching, right? Like you're a run team first, or like you're a pass team first, or like you're a 4-2-5 scheme or 4-3 scheme. I think if you're going to do that, you need to stick to it. And I don't know that there are a lot of big-time college football coaches that will stick to that, right?
Yeah, I got you.
But no, I like it. I like it. Just football and injuries, man. Football injuries, and you can't lose games, right? Like if you lose game 5 of a 7-game series, not a big deal. I mean, you lose to South Carolina or Auburn, you might not be playing in your division, or you might not be your division champ. Right. And I think that's the thing to take into account. But it'll be interesting because I'll bet somebody's going to gamble and try to do that. I'll bet they're going to gamble and try, and then we'll get to see how it works.
All right. Okay. Fine. One guy who may not be staying under 5 games during his freshman year, whether Lincoln Riley wants to get creative or not, is Oklahoma commit Theo Weiss.
Wait, dropping news? Is that what you're doing? You're dropping news right now?
No, man. I just feel like it's kind of a foregone conclusion, right? I mean, he's the Rivals ranked number 1 receiver in the country.
Right.
Big body, seems like a great dude to pair with Spencer Rattler after he wins the job as a true freshman. So that's kind of where I'm at, man. I just think Theo's a stud, and he was part of an absolutely monster recruiting day for OU, which prompted me to want to hang out with him because I felt like he was one of the key players in putting that class together. And I had the good fortune of doing that. I spent a couple of days with him up in Allen while we produced an upcoming multi-part profile on him that'll hit.
So excited to see.
Yeah, dude, I think it's going to be great. We've been pouring over the footage.
I haven't seen it, and I'm really salivating over this, by the way, because I mean, Theo is a guy that a lot of people want to talk to, not a lot of people get to talk to. He's also the best athlete in the class, right? We know this. And you've already, for a non-OU guy, you already put together what the 2019 roster's going to look like. And for my part, you talk about that big, just huge recruiting day, which was, right before the eve of spring game at Oklahoma, where it's him, it's R.J. Henderson, it's Jamal Morris, Jarian Jones has since decommitted. But, I mean, and then you picked up a 2020 commit in Jalen Knighton, and you're going, okay, everybody's had something to say about this, but Theo, except to say we orchestrated this. All right, tell me more. Mm-hmm. And then here Kolby's like, no, we got a mini doc coming.
Yeah.
It's going to be good.
Yeah. I'll put it to you this way. We showed up at his parents' house on Sunday night. It was during the Warriors-Rockets series, and they were all sitting around the TV watching the game. and mom and dad are both decked out in OU gear. Mom's got the big Oklahoma hat on. They're in love. They're in love with that program. They couldn't say enough about the family environment at Oklahoma. Lincoln Riley, Theo Senior spoke pretty candidly about what it's like to be a father and sit across from a coach who's trying to recruit your kid, and you got to sift through the bullshit and try to figure out how real he's being, and if he really has your kid's best interest in mind, or if he's just chasing stars and trying to make himself look good on National Signing Day, stockpile talent, that kind of a thing. So it could be tricky for the parents. It was clearly an exhausting process. And by the way, none of this was meant to be a subtle plug. Theo Weiss, behind the scenes, a look at what separates him from his peers will be on FloFootball next month. But in the meantime, here's a little preview.
Is this following the opening?
Yeah. This will be after the opening. But I'm actually going to let you see a preview of it right now. I'll play like 30 seconds of it for you, and then we'll come back.
Yes, sir.
About 3rd, 4th grade, I told my mom I wanted to be a role model. Like, I thought that was a job. I was like, Mom, I want to be a role model when I grow up. And she was like, you can do that. You can do whatever you put your mind to. So I just wanted to leave my mark on this earth as a positive role model. Like, I want to be remembered for something more past football. I love putting smiles on kids' faces because I feel like if you make an early impact in a kid's face, it could change their life forever.
Okay, RJ, you kind of already hit on it, but Theo as a prospect as well as anybody outside of a Power 5 football office, probably. What are your thoughts on him? What are your thoughts on him as a player? Where do you think he stacks up next to, as you mentioned, RJ or Trajan, etc.?
Most of what you see in recruiting is what guys have to say about what you can't measure, right? About outside of measurables. But his measurables, number one, are the things that big, long arms, big, long body. But when you see him compete for catches, that's the thing that just I was blown away by. The way that he can position his body to go make a play that he has no business making. The way that he can snatch a ball out of the air, quite literally. Like, the ball is not finished going where it's supposed to go. And he basically calls his audible in midair, says, I'm just going to go and take this out of the sky and keep running with it, right? Mm-hmm. And then you can see what he can do after the catch. But mostly it's in those one-on-one situations where he seems to be undefeated. It doesn't matter who you have on him. He's open. Throw the ball in the vicinity.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm really interested in the open final to see what he looks like in one-on-ones, right? I expect him to be dominant, to be honest. I would give something of value, we'll put it that way, to see Theo Weiss up against Dax Hill in one-on-ones. Like, that's what I'm there for. Like,
you know what, dude? I'm so glad you brought that up because I wanted to bring up the opening anyway. Yeah, obviously Nike's the opening will be at the Star in Dallas this year. First year it's ever not been at the Nike World Headquarters up in Oregon, and what a freaking spectacle that's going to be at that facility. Through the weekend, 7-on-7 finals are going to be Saturday and Sunday night, and everybody who's anybody in terms of football prospect is going to be there, including Theo, and as you mentioned, Dax Hill.
Also, Jaden Hazelwood, who kind of has OU brain, but is a Georgia hard commit.
Guy, sure, yep.
Right? Dax is the most highly touted safety prospect, right? Outside, I mean, I say he's the best Oklahoma player to come out of my area in a very, very long time. I mean, he's up there with GT McCoy, who plays Tampa Bay right now. He's anchored their defensive line. I've never seen a more natural football player, just the way that he moves. But you also talk about Noah Cain at running back, who's going to be at this thing.
Yep.
You talk about Spencer Rattler, who's the OU quarterback, but also Bo Nix, the guy at Auburn, who many people believe can compete with Spencer for that number one ranking as a quarterback. And the thing that I think that recruiting nuts will want to know is the opening finals, right, are kind of counter to the 5-star challenge that Rivals puts on that's exclusive to Rivals. The opening kind of opens up to media members of most stripes, anybody that mostly wants to cover it.
Right,
and I'm excited to go. Kolby got me a credential, so I'm going, and I'm excited to go. But the thing is, if you want to know where the stars come from, like when you see stars next to these kids' name that mean so much to the fans who watch them play, that means so much to the kids themselves. This is where they earn those. Mm-hmm. right? Dax Hill went from a 4-star recruit to a 5-star recruit because he was dominant at the opening in Dallas.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So if this is why these things matter.
Yep.
Right? And we're talking about how there's no 5-star in the 2019 class quarterback. Well, man, Spencer Rattler, all he's been doing is destroying the competition. So if he wins this thing and then he wins the Elite 11, it's going to be hard for any recruiting service, whether it be ESPN, Rivals, or 24/7, to be like, can we really not make this kid a 5-star? Later in the year, perhaps.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I'm really excited about, because there's things on the line here, right? It's not just the showcase. It's not just because media members want a chance to go to the meat market and see the kids play. Number one, these are the best high school football players in the country, and they're all in one room, basically.
Yeah.
And number two, they are competing to show that they are better than the person in front of them.
Absolutely.
So the competition ought to be fierce, and I'm excited about that.
Dude, yeah, I'm looking forward to watching Theo and Lake Travis wideout Garrett Wilson. Theo's number one on Rivals. Garrett's number one on 24/7. Who's right? You know, I can't wait to watch those two next to each other. I'm looking forward to watching either of them match up with guys like Derek Stingley, who recently committed to LSU, or Akeem Dent, the Florida State commit. I love Grayson's Owen Papo. Got to watch him at the Battle on the Border last year, but I can't wait to watch him at a combine type of event. For a while, I thought he might end up being one of the highest-rated linebackers of all time. He's still going to be a top 10 player in his class. And I'll tell you, with Owen, a guy he really reminds me of is Jabril Peppers, which may seem like a weird comp, Jabril being primarily someone you think of as a safety and a punt returner, etc. But Jabril obviously played in the box for Michigan at times, and the way they move, the way they're built, the way they look in pads, it's like striking, the resemblance between Owen and Jabril Peppers. And I'll tell you one other guy, and then we can get off this because I know we're running low on time, but one other guy who most people aren't already talking about, but absolutely will be when we leave Dallas, is a kid named Kell Sherman out of St. John's College in D.C.
All right.
Last year, we were at St. John's College, St. John Bosco, which was obviously loaded with talent on the field. And
Still is.
Yeah, and Mikkel stood out. And I had no idea who he was when I got there because he was a sophomore. And so I had a buddy from the area that was out there with me watching the game, not a high school football aficionado. He had no idea really. He was just eyeballing the kids, and he's like, "Yo, who's 23?" And I'm like, I don't know. So I'm like googling it and trying to figure out, find a roster, figure out who he is. Sophomore at the time, had probably half a dozen offers at the time. Now he's the number 2 rated linebacker in the class. I think he's one of the best players in the class, period, regardless of position, and I think he's absolutely going to blow people's minds at the opening. They actually have him listed as a 19 prospect on the site. He's a 20 prospect, but he does look like a 19, so it's tough to fault him for that. I can't wait to watch him. Kid's a monster. Just jumps off the tape at you. So, anyway.
Very cool.
Moving right along, there's some gambling news out of Vegas, and I couldn't be more excited about it. It's June, and I already get to talk gambling. Sportsbooks have been accepting futures bets for the eventual national champion now forever. In fact, you wrote a great article about it in April. Now, Westgate is going to accept wagers on who will just simply make the college football playoff. They don't actually have to win it, which would have come in real handy 2 years ago whenever I picked Washington on a little $100 lottery ticket bet.
Whoa!
Yeah. It was a great bet, but sadly they ran into Alabama, and, that doesn't ever end well. But, yeah, so that would have been cool. ESPN's Brett McMurphy tweeted out a list of teams that I looked at yesterday. There were like 22 on the list.
Actually, he's a college football free agent now, which
sucks.
Is
that right? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what?
Yeah.
Hey, Brett, shout out to you, man. Let me know if you want to roll through Flo. I don't have any money for you.
Right?
But, you can sit next to me in here.
Hey, man. Breaking news on FloFootball, I'm telling you.
Hey, you know what? Brett's great at his job, in all seriousness. And this tweet that he put out had 22 teams on it. Who'd you like? I know you saw it because I sent it to you, and if you didn't read it, it's going to hurt my feelings.
Well, I mean, I'm an OU guy, and I like us at 25-1. That's a good payout.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good payout. Mm-hmm. And because not just because I'm an OU guy, but the road to the college football playoff for us is beat Texas. Don't get stomped by FAU. Don't lay an egg that day. right? You should beat UCLA. You should beat Army.
Mm-hmm.
You have 7 home games.
Mm-hmm.
Win the Big 12 title. So beat somebody twice, and you're in.
Yep.
Like that's solid to me. Whereas you look at the rest of these teams, outside of Alabama, who we know, Clemson would be the next one that I would bet on because the ACC is not the ACC that it has been for the last 3, 4, 5 years, where you can count on Florida State to be good. Miami is sniffing, but we don't know what's going on at Vatech right now. You know, it's really difficult to handicap. You can make a bet on Michigan to finally get it right in the Big Ten, but with Ohio State and Penn State still there, I'm not really interested in picking any of those teams because I think that one of those is going to cancel the other out. And we saw the Big Ten champ didn't make it, right? And I think that's something that you got to keep in the back of your head when you're playing these bets, dude. Is who is the selection committee biased against? Who is the selection committee biased for?
Yep.
So given the opportunity to put Auburn in over Ohio State, I'll bet they would, right? So if you're down to a Big Ten team and an SEC team, that's where you're really gonna be like, SEC is gonna get another team in because they do. Outside of that, the long shot, which I thought was really sexy here, was LSU.
Oh,
I like LSU to get out of there.
Okay.
I really do because Joey Burrow is the guy, right? He basically is a poor man's Jalen Hurts at this time, right? He's going to be the guy. You don't know what they have at running back, but I trust them to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're going to be installing a new offensive coordinator, so some stuff maybe somebody hasn't seen before. And Dave Aranda has to earn his paycheck, which is what I'm really banking on. I'm really looking forward to LSU winning another 7-6 game, 9-6 game against Alabama. I think that's how they could get in. And we know that defense is at a premium in college football today.
Yes, sir. I agree with that.
So,
I hate LSU in general, but I'm okay with that. I like the Burrow thought process there a lot, although I don't know what to expect from him. But I love that as taking a shot. And I agree with everything you said about Clemson and Oklahoma. If I had to take a shot, though, let me tell you, dude, give me Stanford at 10-1 to make the playoff.
Make the playoff?
And 50-1 to win the national title. Sure, I'll take that lottery ticket, no question. I don't know what I'm missing with them. I mean, KJ Costello's back, and I don't love KJ Costello, but he's a veteran quarterback, and he's at a program that de-emphasizes the quarterback position. So all he has to do is lead and not mess up. He's got 4 of 5 starting offensive linemen from a year ago back. They've got their 5 leading rushers from last season back, including some guy named Bryce Love. I don't know if you've heard of him. And defensively, like, okay, I get that they're kind of thin on the defensive line, but they played a 2-4-5 half the year last year anyway. So if you only have 2 down linemen, you don't need a whole lot of them. The schedule's tough. I get it, and I'm guessing that's why they're at 10-1 and 50-1, but give me David Shaw and a veteran talented team to figure out that schedule with those odds any day of the week. Absolutely. Sign me up.
I just count on them laying an egg against somebody they shouldn't.
Maybe you'll be right, but I don't know, man. You know what?
If that's where you're going to say, hey, take a flyer, that's a good place to take a flyer.
I'm putting my money where my mouth is on that. I guarantee you I will have a bet placed on Stanford on both of those odds before the season begins. So, go Cardinal.
Boy.
Go Cardinal. Shout out to Lance Anderson, my outside-the-box thinking defensive coordinator up there.
Go Tree!
Okay,
all right. Trees feed animals all the time.
Yeah, trees are great. Their mascot's phenomenal. And so was this podcast, man. Like, I thought we would probably do, 45 minutes. And I think we're at about 3.5 hours now. I'm getting dirty looks from, everybody outside who's waiting on me to finish here. And I just don't care. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. And I know typically people lead with an explanation of what the hell a podcast that's brand new that you've never heard is going to be about at the beginning of the first episode. I've even seen people make a whole episode out of just explaining what the podcast is going to be and then being tune in next time when we actually do the thing we said we were going to do. I didn't love that. It felt weird to me to do it that way. And also I've been chomping at the bit to talk football with you now for months. So I this was therapy for me. I needed it. So sorry for doing this unconventionally, everyone, but I do want to speak to what we want this to be, what this podcast should be, what this show will be, and really what I'm about, and I'm not going to speak for RJ, but what we are collectively about, I think. This show will be mostly about football, but fair warning, I do reserve the right to touch on just about anything from like food to Clayton Kershaw's curveball. I don't know, or Creed. You never know where it's going to go. Technically, we work in sports media, and honestly, I can't stand the majority of my, shall we say, colleagues. Sports media can be stuffy, and it can be just old and out of touch. I mean, I kind of touched on it earlier. I don't mean to keep, beating a dead horse, but turn on ESPN and tell me that a panel of 60-year-olds can or even cares to, in any way, relate to guys that are less than half their age. Almost everywhere I look, there are examples of young guys in this industry that are looking for something to aspire to, and there's just, I don't know, man. It's just kind of tone deaf. There's just not much. So, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of going to go rogue a lot. I don't want this to be like what you would see if you turned on your TV. If you want to listen to guys go on rants about things they don't really believe in, turn that thing to Fox. Don't come here with it. I said I'm going to speak for myself and not RJ because I don't want to put words in your mouth, dude. But I'm not a big J journalist. I've been there. I've done that. I've never been lamer. I'm a storyteller. I'm a guy who loves the game. All sports, really, but especially football. Came up playing. Failed miserably as a player in college. But I kept coming back to it. And I kept looking for a place where I fit in. And I think this is that place. I think talking about the game from a place of level-headedness and building relationships with players and coaches and earning their trust and just doing it the way that it ought to be done, in my opinion. I think that's my place. RJ, would you like to weigh in?
I'm having a good time. I'm a college football fan that gets to talk about college football every day on YouTube, on Twitter, at Flow, right? I get to have a good time doing this thing that I always loved. So telling stories, yeah, I've done that. I'm pretty good at it. I got a book. I've written magazine features before. I've had the big J journalism job, but this is what I like doing. I like being able to speak what I want to speak and how I want to speak it and get to know the people who make these stories go that I most want to know and tell. So hearing about Theo Weiss getting a mini doc at FloFootball, my wheelhouse. Podcast with recruits and or coaches telling about how they got here, what the work goes into doing what they do every day that seems, otherworldly to me. That's why I'm here, man. I'm here to geek about football.
Definitely. And that's why you're the guy for the job, man. Like I said this before, I can't say it enough. Really appreciate you hanging out. Everyone listening, I hope you'll stick with us. I hope you'll bring your friends. We'll come back at you every week during the football season. The summer will be a little sporadic. Like I said, me and RJ are going to the opening next week, so we'll do something there, and then we'll figure it out. But this thing is so long that it should hold you over for the next month or so, and then we'll talk to you then. So, RJ, I'll let you go, dude. Thanks so much. Talk to you guys later. Everybody be nice.